For loops are one of the most important building blocks in JavaScript. In fact, if you don't understand for loops, you probably won't be able to create very meaningful projects because loops in general are a basic building block of any programming language. It doesn't matter if you use Python, JavaScript, C Sharp, C++, any kind of programming language that you use, you're going to probably encounter loops. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to explain for loops in a super easy to understand way so that if you haven't quite grasped them yet, you can actually watch the video all the way through, understand them, and start implementing them properly in your project. So without further ado, let's actually get into it. What are for loops? For loops are a way that we have in JavaScript to run a specific block of code for a limited or a specific amount of times. So if we have a block of code that we would like to run 5 times, for example, we would use a for loop. Now, how do we write a for loop? We always have to start with the keyword for, followed by parentheses, followed by curly braces. Now, in these parentheses, we're going to state 3 different things. The first thing that we're going to state is our variable, which we're going to call I, and we're going to initialize as 0. You could initialize the variable at any value that you like 1, 2, 3, whatever, but we're just going to initialize it as at 0. The next thing that we have to do is state the condition that must be met for the loop to run. In this case, we're going to say that for the loop to run, I is always going to have to be less than 4. And the last bit that we need to state in between these parentheses is how is I going to mutate? How is I going to change every time the loop goes through another iteration? In this case, we're going to say that I is going to be always incremented by 1. So I plus plus. Cool. And inside of the curly braces, we're going to state the action that we would like the program to perform every time the loop runs through. In this case, we're going to do something extremely simple like console.logging the word hello to the console. Great. Now let's actually go to my Chrome console that I've got open. And as you can see, the word hello or the string hello has been printed out in the console 4 times. Let's do something so that you can see what happens with I or how I mutates every time the loop runs. So we're going to console log I on every single iteration. Now, what would we expect to see in the console? We would expect to see the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. Because remember that I has to be less than 4 in order for the loop to run. So if we go back to the Chrome tab, we can see the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3, just as we expected. Now, if we wanted to see the number 4, we have 2 options that I want you to understand. We could say that I must be less than or equal to 4. In this case, we're going to see the number 4 printed out, and we could also do it in a different way. We could also say that I has to be less than 5 in order for the loop to run. And in this case, again, if we go back to the Chrome console, we can see that the number 4 is printed out. Awesome. So these are the very basics, but I actually want to explain a concept that is a little bit more advanced. And this will give you a lot of flexibility when working with for loops. Normally, when we work with for loops, we're not going to do it with set numbers like 5, but we're going to do it with dynamic values like an array's length. So we're going to create a little array here called numbers, and numbers is going to be an array that is going to be made of, let's say, 4 numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's have another one, 10. Awesome. So we have got our array, which is numbers, and instead of working with a specific number in here, we can work with a dynamic value like the length of our numbers array, numbers length. Cool. So now if we console log I, we're going to be able to see that is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why? Because I has to be less than the length of the array, which is 5. So let's actually have a look at it. Boom. And as you can see, we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But why is this so powerful? Imagine I wanted to increase the numbers array and add more numbers, 16, 18, and 20. Now we don't have to change anything inside of our for loop because we are setting this value dynamically. So now we will see a completely different output in the console. There you go. We can see the numbers 0 through 9. This is extremely powerful because when you're building a program, you don't want to have set numbers. You want to make it generally as dynamic as possible, just so that you can account for many different scenarios. Awesome. So now the last concept that I want to explain, let's go back to our more basic example. Let's say that I has to be less than 20 in order for this loop to run. I want to explain two keywords that are extremely important when it comes to loops. The first one is continue and the next one is break. So let's do a little conditional here, a little if statement. So we're going to say that if I is equal to 10, we are going to continue. Awesome. And we're just going to console log the value of I. Now, what does the continue keyword do? The continue keyword basically skips this iteration of the loop. So whenever I equals 10, the loop is going to see, okay, so we've got the continue keyword, so we're not going to actually run this iteration of the loop. So let's actually go to the Chrome tab and see how this works. So as you can see, we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 all the way up to 9. But when the program encounters that I is equal to 10, it skips that iteration and jumps straight to the next iteration. And what we can do now is throw in the keyword break. So we're going to say if, actually we can do this with this same example and say if I is equal to 10, we're going to break the execution of the program. And break essentially means that, like I said, it's going to stop executing the loop. It's not going to run again. It's going to be like, okay, so I is equal to 10, so now we're going to stop. And it's not going to keep on iterating through the loop. So let's actually go to the console and have a look at it. Boom. Awesome. So as you can see, 0, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 all the way up to 9. But it said that, okay, so now I is equal to 10. I'm not going to continue running the loop because that's how it was programmed to work. Awesome. So that is really it. That is the basics of for loops. And they're a super, super powerful thing that you can use in JavaScript. And I would highly encourage you to just practice with them. Just grab a blank JavaScript file like the one I've got here, write a couple of for loops, get familiar with them. They're very, very easy, but you actually have to interact with them a little bit to be able to get to understand them properly. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, just smash that like button, subscribe, leave a comment if you want me to explain any other concept that you are finding tricky to understand, and I will see you in the next one.